I saw a post on a social media platform, and it went like this. What's with these sellers, brokers that expect you to talk on the phone instead of just texting? And another one, two or three posts later, there was one like, what's the best kind of phone for a real estate broker to get? I said, the one you answer.
Does it ring? Does it have a hello button?
Yeah, that's communication helps with a lot of problems.
Welcome to Agent Success Podcast. If you're a real estate agent looking to succeed in today's crazy market, well, you're in the right place. Each week, we talk with successful real estate agents willing to share their expert insights, trade secrets, and mindset that help them to succeed. There's no fluff, just straight to the point content that prioritizes one thing above all, your success. So without further ado, let's cut to the chase. Welcome to another episode of Cut to the Chase, AgentSuccessPodcast.com. I am here with my lifelong friend, my boy, my homie, Doug Barber. How you doing, Doug?
Very good, thank you.
Good. How long have we known each other? I think we were friends in about kindergarten, something like that.
Seems like forever.
Seems like forever, yes. It's time's going slow. Well, thanks for being here today. And we're going to go over, you do a lot of stuff in real estate. You teach a lot of classes. You deal with a lot of stuff that, I shouldn't say stuff. You deal with a lot of situations because of what you do that maybe one agent may only see once in a lifetime or once every few years, but you have a whole collective of, you see different things from different agents, so you see this stuff all the time. So I'd like to dive into some of that. But before I do that, give us a quick rundown of yourself. What do you do? Where do you work? How long have you been doing it?
I got into real estate in college. I basically grew up in the business. My dad was in Air Force, but he got involved in land development back in the 1950s when we were first stationed at the academy. He was in the initial cadre of instructors at the Air Force Academy. So I said, how'd you get into this? He said, I didn't play golf, and I found a couple of buddies, and we went and bought a piece of land up in Monument and subdivided it, which is the Arrowwood subdivision. That was the first one. Wow. And sold so well. He said, the only people to buy it were our other friends at the academy, so we sold the lots to them. And they kept doing it over the years. And then when he retired, he got out, and we're doing projects, and I kind of grew up stuffing his envelopes for his mailers and doing whatever, and I'd always go out with him to properties to see the stuff. So I loved it. Yeah. So I literally grew up in the business. My brother and I were his slave labor, putting up signs and stocking fish ponds in the subdivisions. And
oh, really?
And I was out in this one that we had done over by Buena Vista down in the boondocks down there. Yeah. And it salespeople come out there, and I'd hear people asking them questions. And they go like, where's the property cards? Oh, it's probably over that hill somewhere. I'm like, I know the ansers to these questions. I can do
tell
this.
You exactly
I put in the pins. I know where they are. Yeah. So, I quickly figured out I could make more money selling real estate than flipping burgers. So I got into it while I was in college and been at it ever since. 49 years this year.
Huh. Wow.
And
now, have you always been in Springs doing it?
Yeah.
Okay.
At the Rawhide Company, and that's our company. And
did you start the Rawhide Company, or
Dad started it in 73, and I joined it in 75. Got my license and joined in 75.
Yeah. Okay.
So we've been around a while.
Yeah.
So we started out as a land company doing subdivisions and selling land projects, and kind of morphed into a general real estate, and we do property management and sales. And
did you ever do any with that land with your dad? Do you guys do any development where you actually built out the communities or anything like that, or is it more selling the lots off?
No, we just were doing land development, selling the lots off. Mm-hmm. I years later became a general contractor, and I built custom homes for 10 years. And before I retired from that, although I'm doing one right now, it's my last one.
Yeah, says the real estate agent.
Yeah, well, this one's for this.
When I retired from real estate, the day I died, when I retired from real estate.
Yeah, so no, I'm just doing one for me and my wife right now. So
now, where are you guys building?
Up in Black Forest.
Okay,
so we like it up there, but yeah, so I did that and started teaching and doing professional standards work. Got involved in realtor leadership. Did that for a long time. I was a national director for 4 years and did a bunch of offices and Colorado Springs and state, but I started doing mediation. I've been doing mediation for over 20 years and litigation consulting in real estate cases. So that's why I get the broad expanse of experiences.
Yeah.
I learn from other people's experience, and I try to pass that
well,
along
we
to
had
brokers.
9 mediation deals like this. I don't want to, I'm not going to go down that path.
Yeah, so that and then teaching classes is
Yeah.
kind of seems like people still come to them, so I still do them.
People still need to learn, I suppose. Yeah.
We all need to learn all the time.
Yeah. So right now, what takes up most of your time? Is the mediation litigation or running an actual real estate company?
Right now it's building a house, but before that, no, I split it. It splits up. You know, the litigation stuff is more hit or miss. You know, it's whenever I get cases, and then there's moments of intensity where you have to work at it if you have to go to trial and things like that.
Yeah.
But,
it's like hyper intense for a short period of time, and then it drags.
Mediations, you know, most of the average mediation that I do, I ask for a 2-hour time commitment from parties. Most of them, if they're going to settle, will go 1.5 to 3 hours, and we'll get it resolved, or they'll decide to go on and duke it out in court.
Yeah.
But probably run an 85 to 90% settlement rate.
Oh wow.
On the disputes, because people actually figure out what the alternative is, and they go, that doesn't sound fun.
Let's just get this figured out.
Let's just be done and get it off our plate and move on with life. So,
I still don't like you, but we're done.
So I still spend a lot of time on the real estate stuff. I'm listing and selling. Closing one this week, and I'm writing a contract on another one today.
So you're still busy in the real estate.
I'm in the trenches.
You're in the trenches, which I think anytime you see a teacher or a coach that either has never done real estate or hasn't done it for 15, 20 years, they know the contract, I suppose, but it's hard to get real life direction from them.
There's different philosophies in management. So when I became a manager at Rawhide, we always had a policy of requiring our managers to sell. They had to do the stuff because we didn't want them to lose touch with what it's like with the brokers in the trenches, and I'm still doing that today. I think that helps give me credibility with the brokers because they know I actually do the business.
Yeah, yeah. So where do you find most of your mediation litigation stuff coming in? Is it two realtors that are trying to duke it out, or is it two clients, or is it Dora calling you and saying, "Hey, we got these people that need it"? Like where is most of the stuff coming from? That
get a lot of earnest money disputes. You know, we've had a whole bunch of deals falling out in recent months.
Yeah.
You know, the interest rates haven't helped.
So than normal.
Yeah, it seems to be a big spate up, and people are nervous about the economy and money, and you know, they find something out wrong with the house, or something's wrong with the property, and then they're like, okay, they're lying to us. We want to bail out. And
you think that's more they were already looking for a way out, and then that was justification for it?
I don't know. I try to never attribute the worst motivations to people's behavior.
Yeah, I'm opposite.
I think most people enter into a real estate transaction with the intention to perform, but people get nervous. You can reasonably expect a buyer to go into buyer's remorse once they get under contract.
Like, oh crap! I just that's
$500,000.
$500,000.
This is real
what was I
now.
thinking? Yeah.
You know, what if the kids don't make friends? What if we lose our job? What if things blow up and this is a pig in a poke, and all these negatives come into people's heads. And of course, we have social media to feed all manner of negativity in people's lives.
Yep.
So there's a lot of that, and so I tell brokers, I think what you need to do is, you get the contract done, but focus on keeping people committed to the transaction.
Yeah.
And that's important. And then for sellers and brokers, my advice is be transparent on everything. Tell the truth, tell everything, and let the chips fall where they may. Buy it or don't buy it, buyer.
Would it be, and I've always wondered this, do you think it would be beneficial in this situation where you have a property inspection, And you've seen property inspection reports. They're ridiculous. They have 200 items of
This house might fall down one day.
someday it might. Yes,
Yeah.
it might fall down someday. The electrical may not be up to code. Well, that's because it was built in 1952.
Which code?
Exactly. In 1952, it was perfect. And
They change codes like underwear around here.
It's insane.
And people, go to Italy. I went to Italy and stayed in a 600-year-old farmhouse. You know what? There's mold. I saw some. I survived. And people
As did
stress
the
over
last
all this
12
stuff.
generations, yeah.
And I'm not saying we shouldn't want a good house to live in, but have a little perspective.
Yeah.
You're not buying a brand new house, and even if you were, it's not perfect. There is no perfect house.
Yeah.
They all have defects. We're in the business of selling defective properties. That's what we do.
I will sell you an imperfect.
That's
item
right.
here.
And I will do it with gusto, and I'll do it with honesty and
Yes.
transparency.
And we just don't know where the imperfections are just yet, but
Yeah.
we know they're there.
We try to find them. We get home inspectors to come look for, show us all the warts you can find so we can make an informed
So
decision.
it's like a marriage, and you're the matchmaker, right? You're matching two imperfect people, a house and a person together, and like you're going to find each other's imperfections. The stairs are going to be creaky. The
Yeah.
carpet's going to.
There's always something,
Yeah, have something going on.
And, I think most people understand that. Most buyers understand that. It's when they find some unpleasant surprise, and then the litigation allegations crop up. Well, the seller had to know about this.
Yeah.
And so the natural tendency in America in general is if something bad happens to you, it has to be somebody else's fault. This is the coat of arms, right? And so they look for somebody to blame. Because it couldn't just be bad luck, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes they're right. Sometimes they go to court and they prove the seller knew stuff.
Yeah.
But other times the sellers, it's like, here's a good example. As a real estate broker, sometimes we'll walk into somebody's house and we'll go, oh, God, cat house.
Yeah. Smells
And
God's
so
money.
you ask the people, it's going to be a problem with the cat smell. And they go, what cat smell? Because they live there. They don't know.
They don't know.
Notice it.
Well, our house smells great. We have Febreze. What are you talking
Yeah.
about? Oh, well,
So
yeah.
you run into those kinds of issues, but ultimately buyers got to decide: is it worth it to me or not to buy it?
Yeah.
But
Well, I guess if somebody knows that it's defective, like
Yeah.
let's say you were on Breaking Bad and you're cooking meth in the basement, you pretty much know meth was in the house, right?
yeah, that's why it's such a good price.
That's exactly. It's kind of a wholesale deal, really, is what we're talking about. But do you think? I guess where I was going with the question was, do you think that a seller, would it be of any benefit, or would it just not even matter if you had an independent, like an actual company, not just some Joe, where you have an independent company where the seller goes and gets an inspection ahead of time? And
There are a lot of brokers that recommend that, and that sellers that do that.
interesting.
And I think the theory behind it is let's get an inspector to come in, find the issues,
Yeah.
and then we can fix them and deal with them. And that way, when the buyer shows up with their inspector, they just won't find a bunch of stuff because we've already fixed it. That's the idea behind it. Here's the thing that sometimes is forgotten. Home inspection reports, despite all the filler that's in many of them, and advisory stuff.
There's a whole lot of fluff in those.
Yeah. Well, you got to remember, some people don't know how to use a screwdriver. So
If the faceplate on my
Yeah.
outlet is cracked, I'm not that worried about it. I don't need a half-page report.
But
on it.
my point is, they try to put a bunch of advisory things in there to help people know how to live in a house and take care of one and things, maintenance things. So beyond all that stuff, they reveal defects in the property. That's the job. Go find the defects, write them up, and tell us about them so we know what we're getting. Make an informed decision. So now the seller has all that information. If they don't fix every one of those, they now have to disclose those to the buyer.
There you
And
go.
so
because
when the buyer
now you're
comes-
informed on it, you're going to have to.
Now you
disclose
have
it.
to disclose them in writing. The contract says so. The law says so. You have to disclose adverse material facts you have actual knowledge of. And nobody knows what's material to the mind of a buyer necessarily,
Interesting.
right? I mean, the Sunset Arena is a good example of that. I had a mediation where the people found out about it was going in, and they bailed out 2 days before closing.
Is this that Ford Amphitheater?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I still call it the Sunset.
Well, I think it just changed. Like,
The Fords.
Yeah.
So They were like, we don't want to be up there
Well,
and have
they've
the
had-
traffic and the noise and stuff, and they bailed out. And the seller's like, that's a benefit. That's not a defect. So
It
eye of the
depends.
beholder.
Do you like-
Powers
yeah.
Boulevard's coming through. It's too close to this house. I don't
Yeah.
want to hear it. Well, how far is far enough away?
Yeah.
And in that case, they said, I don't want to hear traffic noise. I said, then why are you buying anywhere between I-25 and 83? You're going to hear something.
There's going to be a semi with a Jake brake on
Yeah.
somewhere. You're going to hear
So
it.
their comment was, I think we're going to go to Monument. I said, oh, you like trains better than autos?
4 a.m. having the train going down. Yeah.
I don't know.
You know, it's I think they've had 600 complaints at that. I read an article the other day. 600 noise complaints in the first 2 weeks.
Oh,
that
there's
place has been
a
open.
website out there on it now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah,
I'd still like to go check it out. I heard it's pretty awesome.
it is pretty awesome. We went up for the soft opening of it, and
Yeah.
it was pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard it's heard it's pretty amazing. But I mean, really, it's like if you have let's say you live, they build a baseball stadium close to you. If it's city council approves it, they approve it. It's like over on the west side we have, we like to have a little bit of peace and quiet, and we like little open fields here and there, and they recently approved a very large apartment complex on the corner of what is it, 30th and Garden of the Gods, right?
Yep.
It's always just been a big, it's from
I
kissing
know.
camels, and you
Yep.
well, it was how many times did city council deny that over and over and over, and then
It's one of the risks of buying
Yeah.
near undeveloped property because you have
It's-
no idea what may be approved for it.
yeah, and then across the street from it they have the big Verizon building, right?
Yep.
And then all of a sudden it turns into a call center, and then you have the HP factory that used to be over there, and now it's the city building, and no
Yeah.
matter where you buy, especially with undeveloped land, it's
Yeah,
the
things-
possibility that things could happen.
Yep, that's true.
So when you get into a mediation type situation, is it more you tell me your side, you tell me your side, and I'm going to tell you how kind of real estate works, and we'll figure this out? Or is it more like you sit back and they just kind of scream at each other for a minute and you present a...
No, I usually like it depends on the situation. Sometimes we just start off in separate rooms and stay in separate rooms the whole time because they don't want to
Oh, wow.
see each other. But a lot of them, I'll let each side explain the facts as they understand them,
Yeah.
so that I can understand it too. But the reason I'd like to do that is because usually it's the first time they've ever talked to each other and had to listen to each other. Because brokers have to go through the broker of the other party.
Yeah.
Buyers and sellers can always talk to each other, but they're not encouraged to do so. But
So I never really thought about that. They can.
yeah, so sometimes if you've ever done that thing where I whisper a story in your ear and you go
yeah.
around the room, and by the time it gets to the last guy, it doesn't sound like the same story.
Yeah.
And the same thing can get lost in translation going through brokers. You don't know if they're
Yeah.
going to their client going, that other broker's delusional. They're trying to cram this thing down on you. And
Yeah.
the other broker just said, hey, our guys, I think they'd be willing to do this. And,
Yeah.
it's
The
and many
translation.
times I have buyers and sellers, when they're talk to each other, they're like, you're really not the Antichrist like we thought you were. We think it's our brokers that were butting heads and
Yeah.
causing the friction,
Which
sometimes it is.
Yeah.
But again, I think most of the brokers are trying to do things right.
Well, but they all have their own different approach to
Yes, they
how to
do.
do that right as well. So, like in the mortgage world, as an example, we make it very well known that we're going to be transparent about stuff. So if there is an issue that pops up, I don't want to mess with your negotiations, but let's take an appraisal as an example. Appraisal comes back and there's an issue on appraisal. Okay, well, where are we at on this? Well, I'm going to tell everybody. The sellers, not the sellers, I'm sorry, the buyers, the seller's agent, the buyer's agent, they're all going to know it was ordered on this date. It should be in on this date. We got this, we got that. And
That's great.
And when we do that, like in a group text, even with both agents, right? And what I've noticed is when both agents are on the same group text, there a lot of silly, unnecessary, bad stuff doesn't happen. Because if I just tell, like, you're the buyer's agent, well, you brought me a client. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to give you all the information. We're not going to tell. tell them anything. Well, all of a sudden I tell you something, and the story, like you say, can kind of change by the time it gets there, and then they hear it, and then they think about it. They ask their friend, and their friend says, "No, that's some crap." And then pretty soon they're looking at me, when it's just much easier to have everybody just right there. Hey, here's a scenario. Here's how, and it keeps me honest
As long
too.
as it's not confidential information
Well,
you're not gonna have one
you're not
party,
gonna have
that's fine.
personal identifiers or anything like that. And it's nothing.
But yeah.
If you're the buyer's agent, I want to do anything. Like, I don't want to do anything that would mess with the negotiations.
Right.
But at the same time, I am going to let you know we're out of underwriting. We're here
Yeah,
on this
I think
date.
that's awesome. Communication is key.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the biggest problems that we have in real estate transactions is lack of communication. And frankly, part of it is, I saw a post on a social media platform, and it went like this. What's with these sellers, brokers that expect you to talk on the phone instead of just texting? And another one,
Well.
two or three posts later, there was one like, what's the best kind of phone for a real estate broker to get? I said, the one you answer.
Does it ring? Does it have a hello button?
Yeah,
that's the one.
communication
Yeah.
helps with a lot of problems.
Yeah.
It also shows people the broker's engaged and the lender's engaged in the deal. And when you don't get communication, people assume bad stuff is happening.
I've realized that the assumption, I can either paint the picture and give you the information, which then I'm held to a level of, if I'm transparent, then everybody can hold me to a certain level of performance as well. But it also, if I don't communicate on a high level, people assume weird stuff.
Yeah.
Like I don't know where they get it from, but all of a sudden they start assuming weird
I'm
stuff.
starting to think it's human nature.
Yeah.
At least in our side, to assume the worst again about people or situations.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not hearing anything. Must be something wrong. Well, it could be everything's fine. It's kind of like when you're under contract in your due diligence period and you're not hearing anything from the buyer. I'm like, well, no news is good news.
Yeah. You got.
If they're not objecting or terminating, good.
You got a certain amount of time here. What do you want? You want them to call you and say, "Hey, everything's good." Yeah.
I just got one. I'm closing this week, and the buyer's broker sent over an amendment that said, "We're not objecting to anything." I'm like, okay, well, it's unnecessary, but very nice, cool.
Good.
Glad. Thanks for letting us know.
Yeah.
Be happy to sign that one.
Yeah. Well, I guess that. Completely unnecessary.
She's a good gal.
But I was going to say, but at the same time, nice to hear.
Yeah. That's okay.
Yeah.
Over communication's okay with me. Better than not enough.
I don't know what the rules are to your mediation, but you got any juicy stories you can share? Or you have any sort of
Well,
we can't talk about it.
I can tell you that because I get a lot of them now where people are out of area.
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot more by Zoom.
Oh, really?
So we don't have to worry about airborne objects in the room. That's kind of a plus.
Yeah.
I usually set the ground rules right up front. No name calling, no cussing.
Yeah.
Maintain professional decorum. This is just a monetary dispute. This isn't life or death, so maintain a little perspective on the deal. I'm not saying it's an insignificant amount of money because frequently it's a lot.
Yeah.
But that's all it is a money dispute.
Yeah.
So
And we're going to see if we can resolve
let's
it
keep
right
it civil,
now.
and hopefully you guys will choose to do this. And I use the words choose a lot because it's their decision. I'm the neutral guy. Nothing happens if they don't agree to it.
Do you advise during those situations, or is it more? I
will tell them. I will talk to them about interpretations of the contract. I can't give them legal advice, obviously. And, in a lot of cases, brokers will call me. Well, we got this big deal. They went $30,000-$40,000 for some damage they found after the fact. And I'm like, well, I assume you advised legal assistance to them because they should get legal assistance to counsel them. If they're gonna litigate, they'll wind up mediating anyway. Mm-hmm. But they'll probably, once they get lawyers, they'll probably wind up with like a retired judge who charges $5,000 for the mediation.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm significant.
Yeah, a lot less.
Take
than
some
the
zeros off of that. So, they're gonna once they understand that it's their responsibility. It isn't the broker's job to solve the problem. Nobody solves it other than them. They'll take responsibility.
Yeah.
So, and they will come up I'm running 85 to 90% settlement rate on them. That's real estate cases. You know.
Yeah.
I don't do divorce mediations because I'd have to lower my expectations a lot.
For some reason, we're not getting that 85% success rate we were hoping for.
Yeah, I have an attorney really good friend that does divorce stuff. He's like, you should do that, and I'm like, why? I like life, you know.
Yeah. It's I don't know that with that success rate, I would imagine it would be.
It's not me. That's the clients because they decide they want to get it off their plate, and move on with life.
Yeah, let's
just cut it.
We didn't get what we wanted. I still hate those two people.
You know, most of the time, that's not the case. I would say more often than not, they leave feeling better about the other party.
Do you have the real estate agent in the room with you, or is it just the people?
I leave it up to the clients. It's
Okay.
up to them whether they want to have them come or not. Some do, some don't. Some of them go, I think my broker caused this problem. I don't want them there.
Yeah.
But what I do tell the brokers is if you're going to be there, remember, you're not a party. You're not a decision maker. So I don't want them trying to hold their client in their position.
Yeah.
I want to move them towards resolution.
Yeah.
And if you're saying, oh, you're nuts if you do this kind of stuff, I said, it's more of a spectator sport for the brokers.
Yeah.
And, you know, you got documents or something to show, let's bring them out. But
And it's like gladiators, and you're out in the stands. You're
Yeah.
not fighting. Just watch them kill each other.
and it's kind of a microcosm, really, of a real estate deal because some brokers act like they're the party
Oh yeah.
in the real estate deal. And I'm like, I'm just the hired help.
Yeah.
I don't make decisions for my clients. I inform them, I educate them so they can make an informed decision. Do you want to sell your house for this much money?
Yeah.
Or do you want to keep living in your house and hope another person comes along?
It's really quite that simple when you think about it. It doesn't. You're not them, and it took me a while to learn that in mortgages. I used to be pretty set on people's financial, like what they should do financially. It took me a while to realize I'm not them. I don't know if saving $75 a month could be life-changing for them. I don't know. Even though for me, it's like, you got a 6-year break even. That's a terrible idea, right? But I may find that this is exactly what they needed. And so I've learned a long time ago, just, you step back, you present the numbers, you say, and you try to advise the best you can, but at the end of the day, you can't tell them, don't do this.
I was telling you are the only decision maker. Mm-hmm. I'm here to advise you and counsel you and make sure you have the information you need to make an informed decision. And once you make it, it's my job to help implement your decisions.
So I sat through your red line class. What was it? A couple weeks ago, something like that. And you were talking about, you said something to the effect of, with any luck, this is going to have real estate agents actually communicating with each other, right? Where you're actually communicating when it comes to the compensation. Can we talk about that compensation thing for just a minute? Is that okay? So 3 ways that you can get paid, right? You can get paid by the buyer, you can get paid by the seller, or you can get paid by the other brokerage.
Seller's brokerage firm. Yeah.
Or a fourth way would be a combination of those, right?
Yeah. Well, the combination, I think, because of the way the state wrote the forms, I think the way it works is if you're the seller's broker and I'm working with the buyer agreement says, I agree to work for this much money. Mm-hmm. And it says, I am authorized and instructed to go try to get that fee from you, the seller's brokerage firm, or from the seller. I'm instructed to do that.
Yeah.
So that means I call you, hey, Tim, are you guys offering compensation?
Yeah.
If you're offering enough that matches my deal, I'd say, great, can we just put a written agreement together? We have a written agreement, that's it. So when we fill out the contract, I will check the box that says my compensation is this much paid by the seller's brokerage firm pursuant to a separate agreement.
So that agreement would have to be in place before you're even making your offer.
Well, that would be the wise, because how can you fill out the offer if you don't know what
and
your
that's
agreement is?
I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yes, the answer is yes.
Okay.
So
that takes a lot of communication.
Yeah.
Well.
So That's one way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I've talked to some brokerage firms who go, our policy is going to be, we're not going to get into doing the offering of compensation. We're just going to tell buyer brokers, write it into the contract.
Mm-hmm.
So the buyer goes, they're not offering, so I'll go in and check the box in 29.1 that says the seller will pay this commission.
And that's because you don't have that previous agreement with that brokerage. So you basically have to click
I
seller.
have to then, I'm instructed to ask the seller to provide it.
Gotcha.
So the buyer asks the seller in the contract to pay me. Okay. And if, let's say for the sake of argument, we put in an offer where a seller will pay a certain amount. And the seller says, and all I can ask for is my agreement with the buyer, whatever I've agreed with him.
You can't ask for more.
No.
Okay.
So I put that in there, and the seller counters that to a smaller number.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the buyer agreement says, the buyer, you have to pay me the shortfall.
Okay.
So I could check a box that says seller's going to pay this much and buyer's going to pay the differential.
And that would be just basically in a counter offer at that point?
Well, yeah, we'd alter 29 and we'd check two boxes. Seller's going to pay some and buyer's going to pay some.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess my question is, with that, you'd have to do an amendment to where, let's say you filled it in where you clicked 29.1, which is...
We could either do a new counter or new offer.
A new offer. Okay. Gotcha.
One or the other.
Gotcha. But there would be no number 3 without that prior agreement.
Right. But
okay.
the way they wrote the seller listing contract, the seller, if the selling brokerage firm is going to make an offer of compensation, it's in 7.1.1.1. And it says seller authorizes the broker to offer a certain amount. And it's got to be a specific amount. Objectively ascertainable is the language from the settlement. So if they're authorized to do it, great, they can offer it, and that works good for me if that works. But it says also, if the seller is obligated in the sale contract to pay the buyer's company,
Yep.
the amount in 7111 is reduced accordingly.
By the amount the seller
So
has
that's
to pay.
why I don't think you'll see some by listing company and some by
seller.
but you could have some by listing company and some by buyer,
yeah.
or some by seller and some by buyer, I think.
So it seems then that, as a mortgage company, we've already seen a lot of variations of that. And I've talked to a lot of different people, not a lot, but a handful of different people that are interpreting that and doing it differently. It seems then that the logical conclusion would probably be that most contracts, and this is obviously an opinion, but most contracts would probably end up being option 1.
Seller.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because wouldn't that just make it cleaner? Because the seller's going to, if they're paying the seller's brokerage and the brokerage, wouldn't it just make it cleaner just to say 29.1 just across the board as our initial offer? And then if you want to offer less, then I can either go back to my buyer or we can counter or whatever.
Well, if the buyer's broker is going to submit the agreements, the buyer broker compensation agreement instructs them to try to get it from one or the other. So
it doesn't specify which one they have to get it from.
No,
just
so they can get it from
other.
They can get it from either one. So
Okay.
I think, some companies their attitude is, we still think this is a good idea for sellers to offer compensation because it results in the broadest exposure of the property to people who would do it. Part of the problem that brought this whole thing about was the plaintiffs, one of their allegations was that buyer brokers were filtering listings from the MLS based on how much compensation was being offered.
They'd sort them by that amount?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I've never seen a way to sort them.
And
But
you'd have to
they'd
export
look
it,
at it and they go,
put
yeah,
in
I
an
ain't
Excel
working
sheet.
for that.
Yeah.
So now they take it out. We don't know what the deal is. So the idea was, you make your agreement with the buyer.
Yeah.
Now you know what you're getting. Now it won't matter what you show them.
Yeah.
Except, like, what if they go see it for sale by owner? And you ask the for sale by owner, because there is no seller's broker, will you pay?
Yeah.
Well, if we want to pay a broker, we would have hired one. So they go,
Sounds
no,
like you've
we
heard
won't.
that before.
Yes. once or twice.
Time or two.
So
Yeah.
then you tell the buyer, if you want to buy this house, you'll have to pay me.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have the money to pay you.
I barely have money for my down payment. How am I going to pay you?
That's exactly the issue. So we write the contract. Well, can I refuse to show the buyer that property? No, because then am I potentially steering the buyer? I'm not showing him things that meet his criteria,
But then you
based on my financial benefit,
Okay.
putting my financial interest ahead of his.
If he says I can't pay you, but we've already agreed that you're going to pay me,
Yes.
I'm going to show you the house.
Yeah, and we'll write the offer.
I'm going to have to write the offer, but now I'm going to become a collection agency to my past client, which is going to suck.
Well, no, we're going to submit the offer, and if it counters, I mean, he's going to potentially, yes, owe me a commission, and if I wanted to sue him and get a judgment against him for breach of our agreement, I guess I could do that. I've never wanted to sue clients.
I would.
Some of them I wanted to throttle, but not.
We're flogging clients on Tuesdays. Yes.
I think it's an education thing up front where we talk about scenarios with our buyers.
Yeah.
If you want the services of a professional broker who's going to help protect you in this deal and advise you properly through probably the most expensive transaction you'll ever do in your life, then if you want my brains and expertise and time, I have to be paid, and we have to figure out how to do that.
Do you think this is going to lower the number of real estate agents over, say, the next 5 years? Are people going to kind of get out of it because they realize it's now it's like real business? It's like kind of big boy stuff now. Kind of how us loan officers, we have to deal with comp rules and disclosure rules and dates and deadlines, and it could kill the whole deal. You mess it up. Whereas in real estate, it seemed like it was a little more Wild West for a long time, right? It kind of feels like it's a little like right now. It seems like we can still do this, but I have a suspicion there's going to be a bunch of lawsuits over this. People doing it wrong.
Oh, there
over
are.
the next handful of years.
They're already talking about who the next set of defendants are, and they're posting on social media out there. I don't care. I'm still going to do it the way I've always done it, and things like this. And it's
You
like
should stay off social media. It sounds like you're seeing a bunch of bad advice.
I'm going to get out of the National Association of Realtors. I'm like, well, dude, you better still be a realtor when the class notice comes out, because otherwise you won't be protected under the settlement, the antitrust settlement. So, this isn't NAR's fault. They did the smart thing by settling this, because what are they going to do? They get beat at trial, then they go spend 2 more years going to the Court of Appeals, and if they don't prevail there, they go and try to get a writ of certiorari at the Supreme Court, and what if they don't give it to them? Then you're stuck with the Court of Appeals case, and you're millions of dollars more in the hole. So
and to mention lawyer fees and everything else that
class action suits generally are geared towards change in behavior too, like this.
Yeah.
And it's going to have that effect.
Yeah.
And people will figure out how to work on it. But the reality is, buyers bring money to buy the property, and seller has proceeds to pay fees with.
Yep.
And not every buyer can do it. So the reality for sellers is they probably will be, in many cases, still be contributing to the buyer.
But isn't it kind of always been the way where you have the buyer's agency agreement? I thought, I could be wrong. I don't know for sure, but hasn't it always been, for the most part, if the seller doesn't pay, then you still owe me the difference? Isn't that kind of how it was previously?
Depends on how they checked. If they checked 7.3.1 in the old listing, yes, then the buyer would have to pay. But some of them would put in there, buyer doesn't have to pay. Anybody else can pay, but and there are some brokers who, to their chagrin, wound up working free.
Yeah.
Not deliberately.
Yeah.
Because they didn't know how to fill it out. And frankly, we're afraid to talk about their value and the fact that they need to be paid. And most people understand this. Nobody wants to go to work, put in time and labor and expertise and not be paid. Yeah. I guarantee you my plumbers and electricians expect to be paid, my framer.
Yeah.
They like.
I've always kind of looked at it like that's there's certain things as being self-employed, right? And you're going to just like I'm going to pre-qualify people, and I'm going to lose thousands and thousands of dollars over this year just for the cost of pre-qualifying people that can't buy a house or don't buy a house or whatever it is. And that's, some mortgage brokers will go through and charge you to do the application. I mean, Wells Fargo used to have like a $400 application fee, right? Way back when. And some people charge you for credit reports, they charge you for time and this and that. And I kind of look at it as like, well, in the mortgage world, we can't obligate you. Clear up till the very last second. Okay. I could do all this work, all this time, and we get paid absolutely nothing. And if it's if it's with VA, I'm even on hook for the appraisal, for everything. So it's a big loss, right?
I get it.
So there's risk in it.
We put a lot of time and effort and money in. I might work on my client's house and clean it. I've got to clean it up. I'm going to have a couple of runs to the landfill, and I'll be mowing. I'll be cleaning up trees and all kinds of issues, with no assurance that I'll make anything back on the other end if it doesn't sell. So
that's part of this game.
That's part of business, And even if I do get a good contract on the thing, who knows? Maybe I'll have to take a commissionectomy in order to get it to the closing table. Yeah, we don't know, but we go out and do this stuff. But I'd rather negotiate that part on the back end than on the front end. But we do what we got to do. I find
it kind of odd also, like when you look at the timing of the loss. I mean, imagine this is, obviously years and years in the making, but the timing is very odd, because if part of what they're saying is it's, you're not showing certain houses because of the commissions, but when you're dealing in an extreme seller's market, you're kind of showing anything that could possibly close, right? To me, the timing was kind of odd, but
I certainly am. I'm sure that there are some brokers out there who say, I'm not going to show them that because I can't make any money on it.
Yeah.
But I think most brokers, they're like, well, if there's something you see out there, especially because they don't have to have a broker to find the house.
Yeah.
I mean, all you got to have is a smartphone and,
internet access
eyes,
at the library.
And you can see stuff. You can find properties, which that's fine. But finding a property is just a small part of the deal.
There's so many things that could blow up on you. When you read through the contract, me sitting through, like I've sat through different contract classes of yours and other people, and sitting through the contract class, just learning the details of why certain parts of the contract was written the way it was written helps out a lot. And if you've never seen this before, like for sale as a mortgage person, I can tell you, we have a much smoother transaction when we got two realtors. When we got a for sale by owner selling to somebody else, it's always like, what do you mean I can't do that? Oh, no, we agreed on it. It's fine. Yeah. Well, no, you can't do it.
Yeah. Guidance can be useful.
Weird. Yeah.
So
very strange. Yeah. Well, Doug, I have really enjoyed having you here.
It was fun.
Thank you very much for being part of the Agent Success Podcast.
Think a great deal of you, and
well, thank you. Yeah, that's great.
I never have a problem referring people to 719 Lending.
Oh, hey, there's a plug for us. Can we take that clip and just blast it out? There we go. Well, thanks a lot, Doug, and hope to see you around soon.
All right.
That wraps up another episode of Cut to the Chase, agentsuccesspodcast.com. Catch us every week, agentsuccesspodcast.com. That wraps up another episode of Agent Success Podcast. Remember, you can find new episodes each week at agentsuccesspodcast.com. We hope you found the insights and best practices shared today truly valuable. And if you did, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Remember, your success is a journey of learning and improvement. So let's keep hustling, thriving, and learning. Until next week, this is Tim Chase.